Today I'm sharing a story titled like this. On my 30th birthday, I opened Instagram and saw my parents had surprised my sister with a $30,000, my $30,000. Under the post, my mom proudly commented, "She's the one who truly makes us proud." I just smiled, logged into the account, and pressed withdraw. Let's begin. It sounds noble, doesn't it? My mother, Susan, was good at naming things. She called it the Family Heritage Fund. The Heritage was my father Robert's hardware store in our tiny Ohio hometown, a store that had been failing slowly and painfully for a decade. I was the silent investor. That was my other title. 8 years ago, when I got my first real accounting job in Chicago, the calls started. It was always Susan. "The creditors are calling Brianna. Your father is a wreck. We just need a little help to keep the legacy alive." So I helped. I set up an automatic transfer, $800, every single month on the first for 8 straight years. Do the math. I'm an accountant I already have. That is $76,800, more than $70,000 of my money. While I was living with roommates in Chicago, driving a 12-year-old car and putting off buying my own home, I was pumping money into a black hole to save family honor. My sister Morgan, she's 4 years younger. She never contributed. Oh, no. Morgan was the creative one, the influencer. She couldn't be burdened with things like spreadsheets or foreclosure notices. She was busy building her brand, which seemed to involve flying to different cities and taking pictures of avocado toast. I was the one with the stable job. I was the responsible one. And for years, people have asked me, "Brianna, why? Why did you keep paying? Didn't you see what was happening?" The truth is, this wasn't just kindness. It was a role I was programmed to play since I was old enough to realize I was the only one who checked if the bills were paid. It's called the fixer's trap. You're the one who is responsible, so you're the one who fixes things. You feel this crushing weight that if you don't hold all the broken pieces together, everything will shatter, and somehow it will be your fault. You're not just giving money, you're servicing a debt you never signed up for. It's a form of learned helplessness. Only it wasn't me who was helpless. It was them, and I was enabling it. I wasn't saving the family legacy. I was just making it possible for them to be irresponsible for one more month. I was funding their denial. So when I logged into that account, seeing the Dubai trip, seeing the $30,000 gift to Morgan, I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity. This wasn't a family savings account. It was a balance sheet. And I, the silent investor, was finally calling in the debt. The first call came at exactly 8:02 the next morning, right on schedule. It was my mother, Susan. I let it ring 3 times before answering. She wasn't yelling. She was performing. She was in full-blown crisis mode, her voice high and trembling. "Brianna, oh, thank God. Something terrible has happened. I went to pay a vendor and, Brianna, the Heritage Fund. It's empty. Someone hacked us. $25,000. Just gone. We have to call the police." I waited for her to take a breath. I didn't cry. I didn't ask what. My voice was calm, almost bored. "Nobody hacked the account, Mom." Silence. Just static on the line for a second. "What? What did you say?" I said, "Nobody hacked it. I took it. I moved the remaining balance to my personal account last night." The performance stopped. The fake tears evaporated instantly. It was like a switch had been flipped. The trembling victim was gone, replaced by the cold rage I knew so well. "How could you?" she hissed. Her voice dropped low and sharp. "How dare you? That isn't your money, Brianna. That is the family's money. Your father needs that. The business needs that." "The business? Interesting," I said. "What exactly was the $20,000 charge to Emirates Elite Travel for a new shipment of hardware?" She hung up. Just like that. Click. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a string of texts from Dubai. My sister Morgan. "I cannot believe you. You are so unbelievably selfish. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad are proud of me and not you. You're trying to ruin my trip. You're trying to ruin everything. Put that money back right now." I read each message. I saw the entitlement, the complete lack of awareness, the pure, unfiltered narcissism. This wasn't anger. It was an inconvenience to her. My actions were a bug in her program. I deleted the messages one by one. I didn't reply. I made coffee. I showered. I started to get ready for work. I was checking my email when another notification popped up. My mother had tagged me on Facebook. She had posted in the official Granville, Ohio community group, a group where everyone knew our family, everyone knew our legacy. The post read, "It is with the heaviest heart that I have to say this. Some children just forget where they came from. It's heartbreaking when a child you have given everything to chooses money over the very family that raised them. We have always tried to support all our children's dreams, but it seems that just isn't enough for some people. We are devastated by this betrayal." I read the post. I saw the comments start to roll in. "Oh, Susan, I'm so sorry. You and Robert are saints sending prayers. Kids these days are so ungrateful." She wasn't just escalating. She was declaring public war. She was trying to ruin my reputation in our hometown. She thought she was shaming me into submission. I looked at the post, at the comments from people who had no idea what was happening. I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel anger. This wasn't a family drama anymore. This was a hostile takeover, and she had just confirmed that I was right to treat it as one. This wasn't about feelings. This was about accounting. And my mother had just opened her books to the public. I didn't reply to the Facebook post. I didn't engage. I didn't defend myself. When my mother wages a war of emotion, I respond with numbers. I'm an accountant. It's what I do. This was no longer a family squabble. This was a professional escalation. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't respond to Morgan's increasingly frantic texts about needing money. I simply got to work. I called my bank and requested every single statement from the Heritage Fund for the past 8 years, all 96 of them. They arrived in my inbox as a massive PDF file. I spent the next 3 days doing what I am paid to do. I conducted a full forensic audit of my family. I opened a new Excel spreadsheet. I titled it Family Audit. Column A, date. Column B, Brianna's contribution. A neat row of negative $800 entries. Column C, withdrawal. Column D, description. Column E, recipient. I went through every statement line by line. The numbers told a story that made the Dubai trip look trivial. Here was $500 for spa retreat. Recipient Susan. Here was $1,200 for car lease payment, luxury. Recipient Morgan. Here was a $2,000 transfer labeled investment, which I cross-referenced and found was a down payment on a timeshare in Florida. And then the big ones, the $30,000 startup capital for Morgan, the $20,000 travel expenses. I created graphs. I made pivot tables. I charted the flow of my money, my $76,800 investment against their expenditures. It was clinical. It was precise. It was undeniable. My money intended to save a legacy had been systematically embezzled to fund a fantasy life. This wasn't just poor management. This wasn't just favoritism. This was a calculated, long-term financial deception. I saved the final file as a PDF, the audit. Then I made my second call. Not to my mother, not to my father. I called my lawyer. I explained the situation not as a hurt daughter, but as a defrauded investor. I explained that my mother was now publicly accusing me of theft in our hometown's Facebook group, and I needed to protect myself. I didn't ask her to sue them. I didn't want a long, messy court battle. I wanted precision. I asked her to review my audit. I asked her to confirm the legal standing. And then I asked her to draft a formal notice not to my parents, but to the bank, placing a fraud alert on all activity related to that account and initiating an investigation. My mother thought she was playing checkers, appealing to small-town gossip. She didn't realize I was playing chess, and I was about to put her in checkmate. My lawyer called me 3 days after I sent her the audit. Her voice was different, not angry, but careful. Clinical. "Brianna," she said, "your audit was immaculate. You're right, the funds were clearly misappropriated. But you missed something. You were auditing the wrong problem." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You were auditing a failing business," my lawyer said. "I wasn't. I was running a background check on the business itself. Brianna, there is no hardware store." My blood went cold. "What?" "The bank foreclosed on the property 6 months ago. The business was dissolved. The Heritage Fund wasn't paying creditors because there are no creditors. The store is gone. It's been gone for half a year." I sat down. The spreadsheet on my screen suddenly looked like a joke, but were my father, the vendors. "What?" "That's the part that took me a minute to untangle," she said. "Your mother, Susan, wasn't just lying to you. She was lying to your father." I pulled the statements for the store's actual creditor accounts. They've been dormant. She's been showing your father a completely different set of fabricated statements. 2 sets of books. One for him to make him think his legacy was barely surviving thanks to you, and one for her where she was bleeding you dry. It wasn't a family business. It was a con. My mother wasn't a desperate wife trying to save her husband's pride. She was a professional manipulator. My father wasn't her accomplice. He was her first victim. And I was just the bank. The anger I felt before was hot. This was different. This was ice. This was the clarity of a final balance sheet. The account wasn't just overdrawn. It was fraudulent from the start. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from them. The bank's fraud investigation was underway. The Facebook post had been deleted after I'd quietly sent my audit to a few key family members. The silence was heavy. Then on a Tuesday night, there was a knock on my Chicago apartment door. I looked through the peephole. My stomach didn't drop. I felt nothing. It was them, Susan, Robert, and Morgan. I opened the door. They looked terrible. My father, Robert, looked like he had aged 20 years. His eyes were hollow, vacant. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared at the floor. He knew. Morgan, my sister, was next to him. The Dubai tan was fading. Her hair was a mess. She looked like her Instagram filter had been scrubbed off with sandpaper. She was just a sullen, angry 26-year-old who'd been forced to fly coach. And then there was Susan, my mother. Her eyes were red, but not with sadness, with a frantic, burning rage. Brianna, she started, her voice trying to sound reasonable. We know you're angry. We understand. But this has gone on long enough. This has to stop. We are a family. I didn't say anything. I just leaned against the door frame. She took my silence as an invitation to continue. The performance began again. Your father. Look at him. He's a broken man. We've been evicted from the house. Morgan had to come home. Her brand deals are falling apart. They're ruining her reputation. All because of this accounting you did. She spat the word accounting like it was a crime. We need that. $25,000, Brianna, she said, her voice getting stronger. It's our only chance. You have to give it back to stabilize things. For Morgan, for your father. My father flinched, but still said nothing. He knew the $25,000 was just a drop in the ocean of her lies. I looked at Susan. At the sheer uncut audacity of the woman, she had been caught in a massive 8-year financial fraud, lying to her husband and both her daughters, and she was still trying to manipulate me, still trying to play the family card. I held up one hand. Wait here. I turned and walked away from the door into my apartment. I heard my mother start to say something, but I ignored her. I walked to my desk. On it was a stack of mail. I picked up one piece of paper, a carbon copy of a check I had written that morning. I walked back to the doorway. They were all standing there looking expectant, hopeful even. They thought I'd gone to get my checkbook. I looked directly at Susan. You're right, I said, my voice perfectly level. This has gone on long enough. I held out the piece of paper to her. She reached for it, confused. What is this? This, I said, is a copy of the $20,000 check I wrote and delivered this morning. It's the down payment on my first condo here in Chicago. I watched her face crumple as the numbers registered. She wasn't getting the money. I had spent it. I decided I continued after 8 years of investing in a fraudulent family heritage. It was time to finally invest in my own. I didn't hand her the paper. I just held it up. I looked at my father. I'm sorry she did this to you. I looked at Morgan. You're on your own. And then I looked back at Susan. Goodbye, Susan. I closed the door. I didn't slam it. I just closed it, clicked the deadbolt, and walked away. I heard her start to pound on the door, screaming my name, but I just turned up the volume on my TV. 6 months passed. My fiancé and I were unpacking boxes in our new condo, the one I'd put the down payment on. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. It was real. It was mine. I heard bits and pieces about what happened back in Ohio, not because I asked, but because news travels. My father, Robert, I heard he was working at a Home Depot, helping people find lumber. My sister Morgan, the Dubai influencer, was apparently working as a waitress at a chain restaurant trying to pay off the credit card debt she'd racked up on her trip. And my mother, Susan, she was facing a series of legal troubles from the actual creditors of the hardware store, the ones she hadn't paid for years. The fraud was no longer just a family matter. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt balanced. The books were finally balanced. That night after we'd unpacked the last box, I sat down at my new desk. I opened my laptop. I found the file one last time, familyaudit.xlsx. I opened it. I stared at the columns. The endless rows of negative $800 payments. I looked at the final tally at the bottom, the bright red number, negative $76,800. I stared at it for a long time. This wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a scar. It was a record of 8 years of my life, quantified. Then I moved my cursor. I right-clicked on the file. I clicked delete. I watched the file disappear. I emptied the recycle bin. It was gone. I realized then that family isn't an obligation you're born into. It's not just blood. Blood can be a chain. Real family is built on respect, on trust, on mutual support. What I had wasn't a family, it was a toxic contract that I had never agreed to sign. And you learn that letting go of a toxic bloodline isn't selfish. It's not an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-preservation. It's like cutting off a diseased limb to save the rest of the body. It's a brave, painful, and necessary choice to save yourself. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. That night, in my new home for the first time in 8 years, I slept through till morning.